And when I was talking to him, I thought he was autistic.
No, he's autistic. He's macular degeneration. This isn't the right place. My cousin's playing at the expensive.
That's, yeah.
My cousin's playing at the end.
What is it? I mean, of course,
Well,
I
I
just
have
get
really
into
expensive seats, which are under $30.
Oh, okay.
They have cheaper seats.
Where is he actually playing?
At Lincoln Center.
Oh,
Not at
nice.
Lincoln Center, at Dizzy's, basically.
Okay.
Not at the nightclub. It's pretty good. It's one of the Ross Auditorium.
Okay.
So I'm
Nice.
meeting my sister.
Yeah, my friend. What was that? What it? Sometimes I wonder when they put their articles out there, so watching the other side.
I think I was there just before that, and I went by yesterday.
Oh, he came in from defended that one. I forget what
You need it?
No, I didn't.
We'll see. Let me know.
I'm vegetarian. I'm vegetarian. I think.
If at least from us, maybe one step forward, one big step forward.
Yeah.
Thank you. You were hesitating.
Just know that you're.
I'm sorry?
She's
I said,
recording.
just know.
Oh, yes, exactly.
Quiet.
Yep. Right.
Good, spread good rumors.
We have the new cartoon coming out.
Yeah.
They go for the cartoon.
I saw one of the films, it was really good.
Oh, this is another one. This is a
Cartoon. So it's just like a one cartoon kind of thing?
That's right.
Yeah.
She takes the Goshen town dressed up as a regular
Did you see what Susan did? Did you see the cartoon she put together? I don't know why we didn't.
My day started with a fight with my social media.
I didn't get my dress yet.
You didn't get it yet?
I'm going to procrastinate.
And I said, no. She said, why not? It's free. I said, it's copyrighted. I said, not only is it copyrighted, they actually defended the copyright. I said, I'm not permitting you to do that.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the November 12th Montgomery I.D.A. meeting. Can everybody hear me okay? We have a lengthy agenda, a number of things to consider. I'm pleased to see we have full board attendance tonight, and I welcome everybody in the audience from the community It's good to see everybody out. A couple of items that are not on the agenda in the form of announcements. Just this afternoon, I received an email from Anthony Zambrata, our Assistant Secretary for the I.D.A. Board, announcing his resignation effective today. So I would ask that to be included in the minutes. Also, received various letters just today, and two of them being related to an ethics issue. And I'm going to ask our counsel, Bob McLaughlin, to address those issues. Bob?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
That's not working.
I don't have control of
If there's a button, you just have to hold it down, turn it on.
it. So in any event, thank you. We did receive
There you go. I got it.
No, I'm not gonna hold the microphone, thank you.
Yeah, this one might work. This one.
That one should work,
That
yep.
one works.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you. I usually don't need a microphone. I usually have my own. We did receive two ethics letters today. We did receive an ethics letter some time ago. The matter has been fully discussed with you, Mr. Chair, and with the board member involved. The board member involved, the complaint or the letter was inappropriate in many respects. The ethics board of the town did take up the letter, notwithstanding the inappropriate way that it was provided to them. They did issue an opinion in October. The board member involved has engaged private counsel to presumably deal with it in a proper fashion with the ethics board. There is no final determination by the ethics board in connection with service of all the members of this board at this meeting. The town board has not taken any action with respect to any of the board members at this meeting. And it is my legal opinion that each member here today can properly be here, sit at this meeting, vote, and serve as a member of the board of the I.D.A.
Thank you, Bob. As we move into our new business, I would like to introduce the board, starting on my right, John Masiosi, John Dixon, Ed Williams to my immediate right, Robert Santo, also known as Bob, Steve Rinaldi, and Matt Stoddard. Thank you all for being here, and our secretary, Sue Haddon, who does a wonderful job on some pretty lengthy minutes, and our counsel, Bob McLaughlin. Our first item under new business is a new application, Matrix Maple Development on Maple Avenue. It's for a solar project, and the board will consider a public hearing resolution. Our council's going to review briefly that project. I'm not sure if anyone is here for that project tonight. Okay, we do have a couple gentlemen. Would you like to briefly review that project with us tonight? Feel free to come up, and we'll get you a microphone. Well, that,
Speak out loud if you want.
yeah, try that one. I think Bob knows how to use it now.
Testing. There we
Yeah,
go.
good.
Thank you.
Just kidding.
Great. Thank you for having us tonight. My name is Michael Dowd. I'm the Director of Development for Matrix Development. We're based out of, I'm actually based out of Albany. Our home base is New York City. Tonight I have with me Scott Sabat, who's the managing member of Matrix Development. Matrix Maple is the owner of the land that we're going to build a solar array on Maple Ave, just off of 17K, over by Dempsey Pipe, if you know where that is. Yep. And we're seeking, it's a 7.1 community solar system. the power which we're trying to sell to the local residents of the town of Montgomery, and it's roughly about 26 acres. So tonight we're seeking assistance with the pilot, kind of a three-way mutual pilot agreement with all taxing jurisdictions, and that's what I can tell you about the project. Glad to answer any questions.
Very good. Any questions from the board for Michael?
Yes, I have one. How many jobs is this going to create permanently?
So we have, we provide a packet that kind of outlines all the temporary, permanent, and construction jobs. I provided a labor overview within that packet.
And what would the salary range be of these jobs?
So most of the jobs, that's also in the packet. Most of these jobs are anywhere from $60,000 to $100,000, either for the construction jobs or there's a number of jobs to keep these systems operating. You have landscapers, you have performance engineers, you have asset managers. There's a number of ancillary jobs that help subscribe the system, so people who want to buy the power and people who want to get out. So there are people that support that, and that information is in the packet. You're welcome.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
And I would ask our council to briefly review the public hearing resolution. Bob?
Sure. So, Mr. Chair, as we've talked about, this application seeks approximately $380,000 in financial assistance while also providing for a payment in lieu of tax, payment to the taxing jurisdictions. One of the items that we do need to discuss at the January meeting is an amendment to the uniform tax exempt policy to address solar projects. Right now, your UTEP policy does not address solar projects, not unusual. I.D.A.s around the state have amended their UTEP policy as these projects have developed. Solar is encouraged by Governor Cuomo to meet his goal of 70% renewables by 2030 and 100% by 2040, and so these solar plants, solar sites all around the state are part of that initiative, and so we will, I will circulate some drafts of that. The board will have to consider that in January, and then we'll have to hold a public hearing for the taxing authorities to approve that amendment to the UTEP policy to address the solar. The resolution before you right now is consistent with the general municipal law, since you're potentially granting or considering financial assistance greater than $100,000. That requires a public hearing to be held on 10 days' notice. All this resolution does is state that the chair is authorized or is designated to schedule that public hearing and then hold that public hearing at a date to be determined. You're making no decision today on the application. You're making no decision today on the financial assistance, purely to hold a public hearing to comply with the general municipal law.
Any questions on the resolution from the board? And during that public hearing process, we will have the chance, as will the public, to ask further questions. Would anyone care to make a motion to approve that resolution? So moved by Bob Santos, second by Ed. Any other discussion on the motion? Oh, okay, roll call vote. I'll start on my right. John? John Dixon?
Yes.
Ed Williams? I'm a yes. Bob?
Yes.
Steve and Matt?
Yes.
7 yeses on that resolution vote. Moving on to our next item, the Trams Hotel Group. It's a Holiday Inn Express and Suite here on New York State 208, just down the road. We had an earlier application by another group, which did not move forward. And is anyone here from Trams who would like to speak? Ma'am.
Thank you very much, board members, to give the opportunity to be here today. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, and your name?
My name is Taranu Murad. and
Okay.
I am the CEO of Prime Hotels Group. We own and operate hotels for the last 35 years, and we're looking forward to working with the board and acquiring this Orient Express in Orange County. We're very excited about it. We're going to renovate the hotel. We're going to improve it. Obviously, it's going to create some jobs, and which I think have been submitted in the application. And we're seeking some help from I.D.A. In terms of our, taxes. And some new competition is coming up in the neighborhood, as you know that. So, but we are prepared to work with that and improve the property so that we can stay competitive with all the new properties that have come up in the neighboring areas.
Thank you. Questions?
What kind of renovations are you gonna be doing?
Well, we have looked at the hotel. There'll be a lot of renovations into the lobby area. Holiday Inn has changed some of their requirements, so we have to comply with those requirements. There's some renovation that have to be made to the, the rooms and to the, say it again? The bathrooms. Exterior. I mean, there were a lot of improvements that have to be done. As you understand, in hospitality, we have to remain competitive with all the other newer hotels that have come up. And obviously, as you know, the guests sort of, the way they use the hotel needs a renovation. And so we'll have to spend a good amount of money to make sure that we keep the property as to the level it should be. So that Orange County is proud of it too.
Thank you. Any other questions?
And that down, sorry for that. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Bob, if you would again review the resolution for
Sure, and
public
Mr.
hearing.
And Mr. Chair and the board, the application is for financial assistance. It's very similar to an application that was submitted earlier this year. It is seeking assignment of a current pilot. I think we're in year 6 of the current pilot, as well as sales tax and mortgage recording tax relief. Because all of that financial assistance exceeds the sum of $100,000, it does require a public hearing, which is what the resolution is before you. Again, you are not approving any financial assistance tonight, but purely the approval for scheduling a public hearing at some point in the future to hear what the public has to say about this project, and then you will proceed after that. Unlike the prior project, this would not require any amendment to the existing uniform tax exempt policy because it's already covered there.
Questions for Bob? Anyone care to make a motion to approve the resolution?
Motion.
By Matt Stoddard. Second, Steve, thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Oh yeah, that's right. Not used to that. John?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Ed? Tommy, yes?
Yes.
Bob? Yes. Steve and
Yes.
Matt? 7 yeses. Moving on to Blue Water 1 LLC. This is a first part of this consideration is for the seeker findings. You have a seeker resolution before the board, and Bob, would you review that, please?
Sure, Mr. Chair. As the board knows, any action taken by this board requires them to stop first and conduct a seeker review. The seeker is a state environmental quality review act, which literally says that a public body has to stop what it's doing, take a hard look at a project that may infect the environment, and then determine what the effects are and if there's any mitigation. In this case, the project applicant, Blue Water 1 LLC, did submit a planning board application. The planning board did conduct what's called under seeker a coordinated review with many agencies, including this town I.D.A. The conclusion of that was on September 24th of 2019, when the town of Montgomery Planning Board issued its finding statement. I will not go into the finding statement. It's 110 pages. It is available publicly and is made part of this resolution. What the town board is doing tonight is reviewing that finding statement, adopting their own finding statement as required by seeker, which incorporates the finding statement of the town planning board. This is entirely appropriate because it was a coordinated review. this board did allow the planning board to be what's called under seeker a lead agency. They've already made the determination. You're just reviewing that determination and adopting your own, which is part of the resolution on tonight.
Thank you, Bob. Any questions on the environmental review process? I would ask for a motion to, Bob.
This review, is it in our packet here? I haven't seen it. I'm only my second meeting on the board.
Yeah, it was, that's it right there, this one right here. The seeker resolution.
Okay, we just got this
That's correct.
Okay.
And we can take a minute to go over it in more detail if you like.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm sorry. I came a half hour early to read all this stuff. I didn't get to it.
Speed reading.
Yeah.
As Bob mentioned, this has been an ongoing process where the planning board as lead agency went into the detail of reviewing an environmental impact statement and a number of steps, including a finding statement after a public hearing to review all the environmental factors as is concerned by state law. Is there anything else you would like to add to that, Bob?
Well, since I have some time, I will just briefly discuss the fact that as part of the finding statement and as part of the planning board's review, they did look at land use and zoning issues. They also looked at the visual character of the location and the building, the infrastructure, and utilities, traffic and transportation, the community facilities and services, the effect on the current soil and geology, surface water resources, wetlands, cultural resources, noise, flora and fauna, fiscal and economic impacts, and air quality. Later on, in an approving resolution, we do note the fact that as part of this, they are going to construct an on-site wastewater treatment plant that will administer their sanitary sewer issues. The plant will eventually be deeded to the town of Montgomery, or transferred to the town of Montgomery, and is expandable to take care of future town of Montgomery needs by way of economic development, both commercial and on residential.
I need to catch up a little bit. This wastewater treatment plant, where does the effluent go? I would have to look.
It's in Timbrook.
And the town, the planning board did not accept that.
Goes in the Timbrook.
I'm sorry,
Because of the Timbrook.
Into the Timbrook.
And Bob, the sewer plant will be offered, there will be an offer of dedication to the town. It's not been decided that the town will take possession of the treatment plant. Okay, thank you.
And for the record, Steve, just state your name, please.
Steve Butte, Blue Water.
Thank you. Did you have another question, Bob?
Well, I don't know the health of the Timbrook, and I don't know what this wastewater is gonna do to it. I'm not up to speed, so I'm gonna abstain. I know, I'm gonna abstain on this. I'm sorry.
From the seeker resolution.
Yes.
That's certainly your prerogative. I think, Council, I don't know how you advise board members when you have documents that are thousands of pages long. How we would ever understand every part of the detail. We know what the outcome is in the environmental summary for the project.
I can understand it if I read it, but I'm not up to speed. I was involved in an original baseline study of the Timbrook. I am the zoologist, and I was involved in it, done by the Town of Montgomery Conservation Advisory Corps Committee. And I'd just like to see it, but it doesn't matter tonight. I'll just abstain from the vote.
Any other questions on the seeker review? And I might just say this is a very common practice with most every project, unless it's a, what do you call it, doesn't reach the threshold of going into the environmental impact statement. On class?
Every project requires an environmental review in New York State.
EAF.
It requires either an environmental assessment form, an EAF, either a short form or a long form. There are two types under seeker, type 1 or type 2. Type 2, you can issue pretty quickly what's called a negative declaration if they're one of the 40-something. They keep adding new projects, but when I was with the state, it was 35, and I think they're up to now 48 different projects that are automatically a negative declaration.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the size of this project, because of its impact, potential impact to the environment, that would not qualify for a type 2. It was a type 1. Planning board required a full environmental impact statement, properly so. It's been debated and issued to the public for some time. The finding statements were issued in September. They're now deemed final under seeker. It was a coordinated review, which means that this board was involved in all of the decision-making process. In order for you to proceed with any financial assistance for the project, though, under seeker, you will have to make a separate seeker determination, whether it's tonight or some other night. If the board members want to take time to review the finding statement of the planning board, which has been out for some time, but if you want to review that, there's absolutely nothing preventing you from doing that.
Thank you, Bob. Would anyone care to make a motion to approve the seeker resolution that's before us tonight?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by John.
You haven't even
Is there
read
a
it.
second to that motion? By Matt. Any other discussion from the board? I'll call the question. All in favor and a roll call vote again. John Messiosi, John Dixon.
Yes.
Ed Williams. I'm a yes.
Abstain.
Abstain. Steve, a no.
Yes.
A yes. So we have 5 in favor, and that resolution is adopted. Moving on to our next item is the approving resolution for the Blue Water 1 LLC project. And again, I would ask Bob to review that. We received a couple more letters today, some of which closely resembled testimony we heard at our public hearing on February 12th.
So, Mr. Chair, this is an application for a project that is projected to include $75 million of investment. They are seeking a pilot as well as a sales and use tax and mortgage recording tax relief, which is part of the financial assistance that the legislature has deemed appropriate to be considered by this board. The board did conduct a public hearing in February, and this board has on several occasions advised the public that the public comment period is available for written comments. The board has received about 24 public comments, and I'm just going to list them for the record, and the letters are available in the I.D.A.'s offices. There was a letter on September 10th from Fred Mertz, September 12th from William Lobb. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing names. September 23rd from Peter Bullis, CPA, from Mark Tierney, from Michael Horodowski, James Smith, Derek Weinkoop, Eric Egeland, Mark Weinberg, Allison Weinkoop, Abigail Doyle, Christopher Ferrello, Christopher Weinkoop, Fred Dana, Robert Keller, Anthony Appigiori Ginorni Esquire, Scott Perry, September 24th from Elizabeth Miller, Casey McDonald, Brian Flynn, Maureen Hallahan. October 25th from Ursula Leitner. From November 12th from John Brown. And also on November 12th from Lerner Pavlik Realty. Those comments are all available to the board at the I.D.A.'s offices. I would classify these letters as overwhelmingly in favor of the project, but they're available for the board members' review. The applicant is here to answer any questions of the board. Otherwise, the resolution that's been drafted before you will provide this standard straight lease financial assistance to the project with exhibits that set forth a description of the expected public benefits of the project, which include up to 750 full-time equivalent new jobs within 3 years of the date of the approval, an average of 300 full-time equivalent construction jobs during a construction period of 18 months within 6 months, starting within 6 months of today's date, private sector investment of up to $75 million, and new tax revenues for local taxing jurisdictions amounting to $26 million over 15 years. The resolution before you does discuss the wastewater treatment plant, and I'll amend that according to the comment that we received earlier that it may be deeded to the town in sometime in the future. Exhibit B to the resolution also sets forth recapture events, which is essentially that if the applicant fails to provide the expected economic benefits over the course of the project, or if they assign the project to another entity, or if they fail to continue the project for the life of the financial assistance, this board, pursuant to state law, must then seek recapture of the benefits, including payment of all taxes that were otherwise due, the sales tax benefit and mortgage recording tax. This board did do that twice in the past calendar year. The first time was on a project called Pollock Telex, who pulled out of the area. We did receive a recapture of the financial assistance. We still have, I think, the mortgage recording tax that we recaptured because the county clerk has not provided us direction as to where that should go. And then recently the UNFI. We did threaten recapture with them because of their failure to provide us with employment information. And one of the things I was going to report on today is that they've now fully provided us with that employment information, and they separately apologized by letter from their CEO saying that they had moved their offices and were unaware of those requirements. I now have a contact in Rhode Island that we can get to every January and make sure that they submit the employment information on a timely basis.
Very good, thank you, Bob. I know at least one of the letters was concerned if the project doesn't realize the number of expected jobs, and this outlines a recapture option for us.
Yes.
And also, if one of the letters commented on a change of entity for end user, and Bob, you just reviewed what happens there, but I think there's also the option to come back to this board for a transfer.
That's right. So the application and public comments from the applicant have always contemplated at some point a transfer of ownership of the property from Blue Water One LLC to some other entity. What is required by state law, in our opinion, would be the following. If the closing on the financial assistance takes place with the applicant that would potentially be approved tonight, and they seek assignment of the property or sale of the property to a third party, what would be required is that third party would have to submit an application for financial assistance, similar to what the hotel group did tonight as well. And they would have to submit the application, and the board would have to consider whether or not the assignment of the existing financial assistance would be approved or not. The other option would be that if Blue Water, the applicant Blue Water One LLC, transferred title to the property or transferred the project to a third-party entity prior to the closing of the financial assistance that could be approved tonight. That would require a new application and a new public hearing at that point, because that would be an entire new set of facts, because it had not yet been closed, and then an approving resolution after that.
And Bob, maybe you mentioned it and I missed it, but the town board approved the rezoning for this site last week. But there's still a couple of open issues, I believe, with the planning board and possibly the ZBA.
I believe that from the information that I've been advised is that there are approvals that are required, but they concern the size of parking spaces and the reduction of the standardized parking spaces, which is not unusual for a ZBA or a planning board to consider.
And related to those approvals, do we have this resolution conditioned on those being completed?
If I could just, my name is
Yes.
Stephen Riley, I'm an attorney representing Blue Water. Just to clarify the record, because this is a matter of sequencing, I think it's simply fair to say, the meeting schedules of the planning board and the town board are such. The planning board did not, I think needs to give site plan approval, did not want to do that until this town board had voted to, as you indicated, Mr. Chairman, change the zoning. So that is technically still out there, but as Bob, as your attorney has mentioned, the seeker's all been done, and the seeker contemplated the project by the planning board. The planning board has essentially approved it under seeker. So that's the other one, in addition to the ZBA.
So to answer your question, Mr. Chair, thank you for that clarification. This resolution provides that the financial assistance would not be available until all approvals, permits have been obtained by the project. So even if approved this evening, nothing will happen with respect to the financial assistance until those other meetings and approvals take place and are received.
Thank you, Bob. I know, Steve?
Just one, at one point, I thought one of the letters pointed out that there may have been a typo in the application.
Oh,
I
yes.
didn't know.
Thank you. Thank you. One of the letters today did, thank you, Steve, for the reminder. One of the applications did point out that one of the parcels, parcel 1, had the right section block but the wrong lot. We did receive a corrected application page today, and with the approval of the board, we'll substitute that page into the application, and we'll make that change into the resolution. Thank you.
I know there's a lot of people here tonight very interested in the project. That this is not a public hearing, but if there's a couple questions of clarification that can be done concisely, I would offer a short opportunity for questions, and I see Kristen Brown, who would like to make a comment.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a small comment. I understand you said the overwhelmingly majority of the letters. For the board's clarification, there were at least two letters that I know of in strong opposition of this project, and the reasons are specified in the letters. I think you guys just got them today. So, if you need time to review them, please take the time, because there is wording in there that describes exactly what the opposition says, and even so in the application itself. So please review them, that's all I ask.
Thank you, Kristen. And our council just responded to one comment in one of those letters, and today I read those letters, as well as went back and looked at the transcript from the February public hearing, and in some cases a number of those things were discussed at the public hearing on February 12th.
And although the 2 letters today may not have been reviewed by all the board members, Sue Haddon is very, very diligent in forwarding all the other public comment letters. So all the letters prior to today have been fully circulated to the board members and me, and are available in the I.D.A.'s office as well.
Barbara Lerner.
Thank you. I'm Barbara Lerner. I own the property on the corner of Route 747 and 17K. There are several other deficiencies within the application, and to be quite honest, if you're asking for $25 million in tax abatements, the least you can do is go to your math. The tax amount that is listed is in conflict with the actual tax bills for 2018. I've enclosed those. If you add up the taxes that were actually paid and compare it with the amount that is stated on, I don't remember which exhibit it was, there is about a 25% difference. One is 44, the other is closer to 55. The other serious deficiency within the application, and as it's posted, is Exhibit F is not listed. Not attached. It's not online, it's not available, it was never available for review. And until going through very specific line items within the application itself and going through the exhibits, I didn't realize that F was not there at all.
Thank you, Barbara. Do you have a response, Steve or Steve?
Which, I apologize, I forget which exhibit F was or was supposed to be.
Exhibit F comes directly from information that is supposed to be provided by.
But I think it's part of the cost-benefit analysis.
I believe so. It's
right, and I think that's been now subsumed by the work done by the I.D.A. and the analysis that council has mentioned. Right?
It's not. I'm confused. It says go to Exhibit F, and there is no Exhibit F. There's nothing to go to, and the financial information on one of the other exhibits is. I believe it was page 32 through 34, is non-existent. It puts us in a difficult position to be able to analyze a document if all of the information isn't there. In addition to the February meeting being held on a day when town hall was closed, the full board wasn't available, and many other members of the community were not able to get here because of weather. The meeting was opened and public comment was closed at that time.
I would like our council to comment on that. Thank you, Robert.
I would respectfully disagree that public comment was closed. It has always remained open for written comment.
For written, but not for verbal.
The distinction, we were required to have a public hearing. The public hearing was held. There was significant attendance at that public hearing. It was a bad weather night. Those of us that were here fully remember the bad weather that was that night. But this room was about the same number of people were here that night as well. There was sufficient opportunity required by the statute, in my opinion, for the public hearing. In addition, the board has said several times to the public that attended meetings that the written comment period was open. And I specifically said at the last meeting to several individuals that came up to me after the meeting, the board needs your public comment. And we received a couple of dozen letters that are, the majority of which are in support of, and there's a couple of letters that are not. The cost benefit analysis that you're referring to is attached to the application, so I don't know what you're missing.
The online application did not have that.
Okay, well, it's in this application, the complete application. I'll look into that online. In addition, the statute requires that the I.D.A. board conduct its own cost-benefit analysis. And what this board has done is do that as required by the statute. And several meetings ago, they engaged a third-party contractor, third-party vendor, that's approved by the state controller, approved by the authority budget office of the state to conduct the cost-benefit analysis. And that report, if I can, Mr. Chair.
Please. And the board has a copy. I think it's the bottom of your packet.
States that the economic benefit to the region, the benefit outweighs the cost, by a ratio of 22 to 1. The benefit to the state outweighs the cost by a ratio of 13 to 1, for a grand total of 21 to 1, cost outweighing the benefit. So by all accounts, there's no other data that's available to the board other than a positive cost-benefit analysis.
May I ask if that, where is that document? Because it's not available online, and some of us come from areas that are far away. It was not, that document was not in the packet of information that I went through just the other day, that was part of the planning board's packet.
Right.
It's
Well, the
not
planning
available.
board would not conduct a
Right.
cost-benefit analysis because I don't believe
It's
they're
not part
required
of
to.
it.
The
Correct.
I.D.A. is required to do that before an approving resolution. Typically, that cost-benefit analysis is done by the board or the staff designated by the board. In this case, a vendor did it with assistance from staff. And right now, the staff is the chair and Sue. And so the cost benefit is part of the board package. It'll be posted tonight or tomorrow as part of the resolution, but there was no obligation on the board to post this in advance of tonight's meeting.
And there was no obligation to share that with the public either?
It'll be shared after the meeting
After
tonight.
the meeting, and potentially after a decision is made. It's kind of like closing the door to the barn after the horses have gone out.
I don't agree with that statement, but I understand where you're coming from. But again, from my standpoint, the board is obligated legally under the legislation to conduct a cost-benefit analysis. That's what they've done. The prelude to them considering a resolution, their notes, as it were, this report, is not open to the public until a public meeting. It is now open to the public.
I see.
Okay, it will be part of the record. Okay, it will be posted as part of the resolution.
May I ask one more question?
Sure.
When were the minutes from the February 12th meeting posted for the public to be able, people who didn't come to that meeting, when were they able to see, or at least read what happened? How long after the meeting?
The minutes,
When were they made public and shared?
so as has been set forth in meetings of this board several times, the board engaged a consultant about a year ago to establish a new website that would be more informative to the public, more compliant with state law. And I can't guarantee that those minutes were up by March, when they would have, or actually by April, when they would have been approved. But they were certainly up by sometime in the spring, May or June, when the website was fully operational. Until then, and one of the reasons why this board changed was that they were a part of the town's website. It wasn't easy for the public to find information. For example, as part of that public meeting, there was a statement made that we had not posted the notice of the public hearing, and it was posted, but it was posted on the town's old website and the new website, and no one had looked at the new website. So I think by the beginning of June, if that's correct, Mr. Chair, the website was fully operational and up to date, and minutes would not be posted until they were approved.
I respectfully request a date for when those minutes were posted. I've spoken with a number of people who say they could not find the minutes for the February 12th meeting until just recently. That would be in violation of open meetings law. And while I understand a lag in terms of the transition between an old and new website, if people do not have the opportunity to read the minutes of a meeting well in advance of being able to review all of the documents, including a reference to Exhibit F, it would seem to be unfair to make a resolution before everybody has ample time to be heard from.
Thank you, Barbara, and I might just add to Bob's comments that those minutes would have been available here at the planning board office, including a email request to have those sent out. I honestly don't know the exact date that they got out on the website, but I believe it was some time ago.
It was before the summer.
Did you have a comment, Susan? No. Okay, you're standing, so I was just checking. Ma'am?
Karina Tipton, Town of Montgomery, you mentioned this benefit cost analysis. You mentioned benefits calculated for the region and for the state. Would you mind sharing if there were any benefits calculated for the Town of Montgomery?
Calculated separately. It looks like they were incorporated within the regional and state benefits.
Which would be appropriate for the county I.D.A., but this is the town I.D.A.
I certainly would expect that a good portion of them come to Montgomery, but it's not calculated separately, and your comment is so noted.
Thank you. I would refer you, I know that you haven't had a chance to review the thousands of pages of the secret document, and there is no benefit cost analysis in that document, but there is a discussion of where the people who will be working in this warehouse will come from, and the applicant did acknowledge in that document, in the final environmental impact statement, that they will not be living in the town of Montgomery. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Do you have a comment on that, Steve or Steve? I would think some of them obviously would be living in the town of Montgomery.
I don't think that comment specific is correct.
Okay. And Bob, I think you covered it, but the UTEP is another process that we use to evaluate the benefits. And we went through that process to evaluate, and I know this project came out rating at the level 3 of benefits.
Right, we, so as part of your UTEP policy, this board, this I.D.A. takes the position of a score sheet at the each application. The score sheet consists of 10 factors. Those factors are reviewed and scored depending on the number of jobs created, the number of I don't want to go from memory, I have it somewhere.
Yeah, the number of jobs, the percent average of county wage. I'll keep going if you want.
I can't find my copy. I know
I might just give this to you because you know more about it than me. This is just the outline of it.
That's it. No, this is it. Thank you. Sorry about that. So there's 12 categories. Number of permanent payroll level jobs, the percentage of the average county wage, the number of potential spin-off jobs, the local business impact on the community investment, education benefits, value of real property, the preservation, expansion, or development of locally owned businesses, whether or not the project utilizes green building practices, whether or not the project develops green collar jobs, is the project providing any historic preservation, does the project promote farming, and does the project promote business cluster development as a component of overall master planning for economic development. After reviewing these, this project scored between a 12 and 14. Under the UTEP policy, if the project is 6 points or less, it's a level 1 benefit. If it's between 7 and 11 points, it's a level 2 benefit. And if it's a 12 points and above, it's a level 3 benefit. So since this project scored at least 12 points. It's entitled to consideration of level 3 benefits. Level 3 benefits under the UTIP policy is a 15-year pilot, the first 5 years of which provide for 0% payment of taxes. And then after that, starting in year 6, we have a 485B, which we talked about at the last meeting, which is a sliding scale down from a start of 50% down to a full 100% payment in year 15.
Thank you, Bob. You good? I might also comment that at least one of the letters, and I think several of the letters, had concern about services for this project in the first 5 years when they are applying for a 100% tax exemption. In discussion with the applicant, they have agreed to paying 10% of that tax in the first 5 years.
Wow.
Which
job,
will, excuse me, sir, you don't have the floor. I'd ask for your respect. I'm trying to explain what is a positive. Maybe it doesn't meet your qualification of enough, but it's more than they originally applied for. And through discussion with the applicant, they have agreed to this. I don't have the number of what it is, but it's a substantial amount and will help cover their share of some of these services during this initial process. So, Barbara, just quickly.
Respectfully, going by the numbers on the application, it will take them 5 years to get to 1 year's tax payment for my business, which is 1/10 the size. So a 10% increase is really nothing in comparison. And I understand that they want to get this up and running and moving along, but this is a known Amazon project. This has been known as Amazon through MWVPL Logistics and Consulting, even though the applicant does not state that it is. With this being a fully pass-through benefit to the end user, and I accept that, and that is normal because leases are typically triple net. It behooves me to comprehend why you would want to extend a tax benefit of any kind to the richest company in the world.
Thank you for those comments. Don Berger.
Yeah, Don Berger, Montgomery. You know, it was such a long time ago, I believe it was in January. But since you have the answers, maybe you guys could answer it. The median salary in the town of Montgomery, how many jobs are you going to offer at the median salary, which is $49,000 a year?
I don't know.
You must.
Are we answering questions, or are we?
Yeah, Don,
Okay,
I'm not allowing a public hearing to start over. We've had a number of months from the public hearing and when written comment could be presented. Right. And we've read the letters. They have the answer to your question, I believe, in their documents, and it doesn't meet your threshold because I'm pretty familiar with those numbers, but that's what the company's about, that's what they're presenting. And with all due respect, our job really isn't to evaluate the need of the company. Our job is to evaluate the benefit to the community.
And that's exactly what I was getting at. How could that be the benefit of the community when their average salary here, as stated in their paperwork, is only $33,000?
Well, that's one aspect which you may weigh differently than the board does, but it's only one of many aspects. And,
right. I think it's a very important one.
Thank you, Don. Is the board clear on that first 5 years? Susan?
I just thought something.
Cockburn.
Are they still getting the Mid-Hudson Regional Economic Development Council's $4 million?
Yeah, I don't have any. You are not.
That's correct.
Okay.
So that money went back to the state?
they're not getting it, I don't know the answer to that.
Why not?
We're not gonna open this up to a detailed discussion. I'm trying to present some opportunity for the public to ask questions and point out some key things. Nina?
I just want to make a very brief comment, and that is, this is a town I.D.A. meeting, and I really wish that this board was more specific to the benefits to our town. There's a lot of influences statewide and regional-wide, and we've had other people come and speak to those benefits, but we really are interested in the town of Montgomery. Just want to say that.
Thank you, and I can say for myself at least, that's why I'm here. I'm not excluding benefits beyond the town, but I'm serving for the benefit, and we don't get paid.
No,
to
I
the
know
town,
you
and
are here, but a lot of the filters and evaluations that you discussed was not town of Montgomery specific.
Well, I think part of our job is to look beyond the town as long as the town benefits are appropriate. Board members, I just want to be clear on the first 5 years. I think there is some significant benefit to the town, but with the applicant paying 10% of the tax. Now, maybe in the very first year, the building isn't there yet, it isn't accessed. That money wouldn't be very much, but by the second and third year, that building's gonna be there, and there's gonna be some significant tax kicking in. Ed?
In addition to that, they get no consideration on the land, and the approved site is worth about 3 times what it is once they start the project. That will be assessed much heavier. So in addition to the 10%, you will be getting a significant amount from the land value, which is not on just that project, but any project.
Thank you, Ed. Any other board comments?
Bob? I have a comment, and it's, the question I have, and can anybody answer it, if this is not granted, will they still build there? As Medline, and Medline already bought the property, and I said, this is before I was even associated with the board. Why give them a pilot if they bought the land and they're gonna move here anyway? So that's my question, and I don't know who can answer it, but one of the mission statement of this board is to assist in the enhancement and diversity of the economy of the town of Montgomery. And this is another warehouse, and I don't see how it's diverse in any sort. Please don't.
Bob,
you make me nervous when you do that. Okay. I'll give you a couple of examples. The donut shop opened up on 208, right across the road from the American Legion. Opened up around Memorial Day, 10 years ago or so. And I was the cook for the Memorial Day breakfast. And I went over, I said, can you help a little bit with the, they said, no, we're not a community store, we're a highway store. We went, the Rotary went over to the Unified. Hey, you know, management, you're part of the community. Well, no, we're not part of the community. You know, I'm sorry I'm getting emotional, but it's just another warehouse. The letters that I got, and I said, this is only my second meeting, have been negative. I haven't seen, has there been communication with the school district?
I would say there's been communication, but the school, I think, is policy, and you probably would know better than I, unless it's changed since you were there, Bob, is very hesitant to weigh in one way or the other on a project.
Well, when Unified was built, and that's why I asked that first question, they needed the pilot to move into Montgomery, and they moved to the right place, to the industrial area. If they didn't have it, they wouldn't have moved to Montgomery. And the teachers' union was against them, the Valley Central, the VCTA. And we as a board decided, well, that, you know, they're gonna move in, they're gonna move someplace else if we don't give them the pilot. Well, this is now what the 6th or 7th year, and they're paying a good portion of taxes.
A lot of tax.
Yes, they are, and I thought that was a wise decision to stay out of it. Now, the school district is the biggest recipient of the taxes, and that's why I'm asking if there's any communication. Did they say yes? No, that's a good idea. We don't like it because we're not going to get taxes. So back to the first question: what happens if we say no?
Steve?
Yes, it's clear to us the project will not be viable if we don't do
Also, Mr. Chair, if the pilot will include an exemption of 90% or a 10% payment, that is a deviation from your UTEP policy. That will require notice to the taxing jurisdictions, including the school district, because it is a positive deviation in the sense that the approved pilot for the first 5 years on level 3 benefits is 0, and this would be a 90% exemption or a 10% payment. The school district would not have any voting approval. There would not be a public hearing for that deviation, but they will be required to get a notice of the deviation. And certainly if they respond with a negative, it's something that the board would have to consider.
So, you know, I'm asking a lot of rookie questions. This is only the second meeting.
Not at all.
So 10%, is that negotiable? Why not 25%? And that's a question. I'm not trying to negotiate. That's a question that I have, among others. So, is it?
The answer is yes, in my opinion. It's late in the process to start that, and we started at 0. The applicant agreed to the 10%. Steve?
Yeah, with all due respect, I mean, we have agreed to 10%. It did start at 0. With all due respect to the board, and I mean it sincerely, I do think it's a little late to say, as the client has indicated, the project will not happen. I mean, there is a point. So I think we have compromised it to 10%. I think in fairness, that is where we are.
And Bob, another response to your question about the tax abatements, and it's been discussed before this board before, that there is another state avenue these applicants can go, and that's a 485B. And I fully expect that's where Medline's going. It does mean that fees that were going to come to the town of Montgomery, and you think about benefits to the town of Montgomery, they are substantial, and with Medline we're not going to get those. My understanding is they would have been in the area of $500,000. When is that fee paid, Bob?
That's paid upon the closing of the financial assistance.
So that was, in my opinion, a loss. Maybe it's an appropriate trade-off, but Medline didn't walk away from all their tax abatement options. They just went in a different direction, and the states really provided those as of right. Is that they got to fill out an application, and if they're a project, there's really no public debate on that.
It's really a filing with the tax assessor on the 485B of the real property tax law. So it's automatic. There's no debate. It's for 10 years.
So there are other options for applicants to consider. Any other comments, questions from the board?
Yes.
Steve?
My main concern with this, one of my main concerns, is the fact that the applicant will not release information on who the prospective tenant is. Everybody has a feeling of who this tenant would be, this leasing would be, and in my opinion, I'm not comfortable giving the richest man in the world any tax benefits. As you know, they recently purchased, if it is Amazon, Jeff Bezos, recently purchased Whole Foods and proceeded to increase the number of hours part-time employees needed to qualify for their medical benefits. I mean, and this is how they're going to treat their employees? What are they gonna do here? I mean, I wanna know who's going into that building. And for you gentlemen to sit here and say, okay, we're gonna spend $75 million and you don't have a clue or you won't release it, that doesn't sit well. Doesn't pass the test for me.
Any other comments from the board? At this point, I would ask if anyone would care to make a motion for the approving resolution.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by John. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Matt. Any other discussion on the resolution? Hearing no other discussion, I would ask for a vote, starting on my right with John Masiosi.
Yes.
John Dixon.
Yes.
Ed Williams. I'm a yes.
No.
No for Bob.
No.
No for Steve. Matt.
Yes.
We have 5 yeses and 2 nays. The approving resolution is approved. Anything else we need to do on that for tonight, Bob? No. Moving on to the September 2019 Treasurer's Report, and I think we have one for October as well. Matt?
Yes, but since there was no movement in the funds, I'll just read you October.
Okay, sounds good.
So as of October, the checkbook beginning balance is $277,552.31. And the Orange Bank Trust, that's the end of it, is the same, $277,552.31. Orange County, or Orange Bank and Trust CD is $54,512.52. The Orange County Bank CD 1481 is $289,806.33. And the Orange Bank and Trust CD 1494 is $109,436.16. Bringing a grand total of the CDs to $453,755, and with the checkbook balance will be $731,307.32.
Any questions for Matt? And can we approve September and October together, or we should do those? Okay, I would ask for a motion to approve the September Treasurer's Report. Motion by Bob, second by Steve. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, the same. Motion carried. And for the October Treasurer's Report 2019, is there a motion? Motion by Ed, second by John Dixon. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Our next item comes under old business, Medline Industries. Just for the record, they did a press release and they've withdrawn their application for tax benefits from the Montgomery I.D.A.
And as well as sales tax.
Sales tax and mortgage filing tax. Thank you, Bob. Any discussion on other pending applications?
I just wanted to raise the UNFI. I already talked about that.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Matt, for preparing a 2020 budget, which is in our packet behind the financial statements from September and October. It's a little bit of a unexacting estimate based on we don't know what projects are gonna come before us and get approved next year, but it's something we have to file with the Paris and Town Board, and I would ask for a resolution authorizing me, since we don't have an executive director right now, to submit that filing.
You need a motion?
Yes, I do.
I'll make that motion.
By Matt, second. Steve, thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. The approval of the September 9th meeting minutes, and Sue has a few further corrections since she printed these out. And I would ask that the motion cover those adjustments as well. Is that okay, Bob? Any other adjustments, corrections on those minutes?
I have to abstain because I wasn't at the meeting.
Sounds good. Is there a motion to approve the corrected minutes?
So moved.
By Ed, second to that motion. Steve, thanks. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. And 2020 board training, Bob, you had some thoughts for that?
Sure, so, Mr. Chair, since we have two new board members, I wanted to at least throw out two options. The first would be that our firm could conduct a board training like we did, I think, earlier this year, before a regularly scheduled meeting for about an hour or two. That's one option. The other option is that the state EDC is an economic development entity that's created solely to promote I.D.As and get I.D.A. directors and staff together to talk about issues that you're all facing. Their annual meeting in Albany is in late January this year. It's usually a 2-day conference. Starts at 12 o'clock the first day, ends at 12 o'clock the second day. I think there is a lunch provided. It may start earlier the first day. Most people attend the first day and either leave, and some people stay over. It is a way to get some training. There are some relevant topics. The Albany session is always really well attended. You can see some of other I.D.A. members, so I would encourage you as a board to consider the attendance there. The second issue I wanted to raise with you, and I will hand these out. As we talked about at the last meeting, legislation was passed and signed by the governor that future meetings starting in January need to be live streamed and then archived for a 5-year period. I did, after discussion with the chair, I did reach out to your current web provider, consultants, whatever we call him, and he was to get back to me. In the meantime, a couple of our I.D.A. clients have decided that they're going to purchase their own equipment. The total price is, I think, just over $600, at least on this sheet. And then that would allow you to live stream, record and live stream, and then they've established, which was a recommendation by the web provider, a YouTube channel for the town board I.D.A. And then those videos would go up, be archived for 5 years, could be pulled down after 5 years, or stay there, I guess, forever. So that's an option, a little bit cheaper option than trying to get video equipment for this room and having a real, having the provider take site from the website and actually adding, which adds additional cost to what they're providing to us. They would be able to provide a link to the YouTube channel on the homepage so that the live streaming would be available there as well as being archived. That's the extent of my technology. I can't talk to anything more. I did ask Mike Smith to come here tonight. He was not able to. So hopefully between now and January, we'll have a little bit better idea of how to do this.
I think our supervisor-elect for the town of Montgomery has some information.
Brian?
Yeah, sure. All right. Is this one working?
I think so.
Cool. So yeah, we're already getting transition started underway, and that's one of the issues we discussed. The services, pretty much exactly how you described them, is something that we want to do, as well as establishing a social media platform in general for the entire town: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. So we want to make sure that we live stream every meeting of every single board and give the public as much access to all the information as humanly possible. So that's something that we're going to do on a kind of macro level, and it probably will save money if we do it all at once. So that's gonna happen in the next 6-7 weeks, and I'm happy to discuss with you some of the conversations I'm having with our team as well. But certainly wouldn't want one board to do something different and not have it be uniform.
Correct, yeah. Good thought. Thank you.
Yep.
Big help. Any other questions on the live streaming? Because we're required to use our best efforts to have the equipment in place for our next meeting if it's in January.
Right, and I think best efforts means best efforts. You're using best efforts now, you're investigating, and certainly if the town has a town-wide scheme, it makes sense to be part of that and wait for that. And so if it's the end of first quarter as opposed to the beginning of the first quarter, certainly the legislation allows for that. If it's this time next year, that's a little bit too late. Sure. But you know, certainly as long as we're working toward a resolution, I think we're following the spirit and the intent of the legislation.
Very good. And also under other business, we should schedule a meeting at least for January, our first meeting in 2020. My feeling, and tonight we're up against a kind of a hard stop with planning board starting at 7:30 and Sue needing a few minutes to transition and as a courtesy to let people come in before that meeting, so it's really a 7 o'clock stop for us. I would like to schedule our meetings next year on a night where we don't have anything after. I personally like the 5:30 start, but I'm open to suggestions. If that doesn't work for a board member, we can talk about it. And in talking with Sue and Bob, did you see how January 14th looked for you?
Tuesdays are great.
Because Mondays aren't good for Bob anyway. So I would propose we schedule for January 14th at 5:30 here in this meeting room. Everybody okay with that? Do we have to vote?
You should vote on that.
Yeah. Is there a motion to approve that date?
I make that motion.
Motion by John, second by Steve. Good. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same? And that's still looking good, Sue? Good.
I'm glad you said that, because that's more important.
Yeah, we'd be in trouble.
We would.
Our last scheduled item is a review of compliance with the local labor policy, and I just wanted to report and jump in if you would like, Matt. Matt and I have been in close touch with Loki Brill, one of our approved labor monitoring firms, and they've been making site visits on active projects. They've been bringing to our attention when there's some issues of concern. Matt and I actually visited one site back in September. And I can say, I think the process is working. There's a few growing pains to get up to speed on what's appropriate and how we review the various waivers. But at this point, we feel the companies are in compliance, although it's taken some discussion and some further understanding and interaction with our Loki Brill, our labor monitoring firm. Now, Bob, you had mentioned there's something you would like to discuss in executive session with us. We have about 10 minutes.
If we could, I think there's a potential litigation issue that I think would be appropriate to discuss in executive session. It shouldn't take more than 5 minutes.
Okay. So I would ask for a motion by the board to go into executive session, and I think we need a roll call on that.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by John, second to that motion, John Messiosi. And as far as voting in favor, John, for that motion?
Yes.
John Dixon, Ed?
Yes.
I'm a yes.
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Steve? Yes. And Matt. And for the public, we expect this to be a short executive session, in which case we'll vote to come out of executive session and come out and report any decisions of the board. So we'll retire to the back room for a few moments. Thank you. I'm not aware of any other business that would come before this board tonight, other than possible follow-up on the local labor. Thank you for being here, everybody.